What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of ASAP, your Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. I am one of your hosts, T. Jamal, joined as always by my sister, Michelee. What's going on, sis?
Hey, bro, I'm doing pretty good today. Thanks for asking. I'm feeling, as good as I can be. I had a good weekend. I used a home spa service. So I got a massage and all that stuff. Got my
Okay.
pedicure done. So, yeah, got to get that self-care
Yeah.
in.
You
So
know
I'm
what?
feeling
I'm
good.
glad you said that because there is this this come to your house spa service that I got introduced to a couple of years ago. It's Black
Mhm.
owned too. And I got to reach out to them. And I found out about them when I was driving for Lyft, and Lyft was doing all this cool little stuff when they were still a good company before
Mhm.
they started janking people.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were giving out these massages. So I took the card of the lady, and she, told me that it was Black owned, that she owned it. So that was dope. So I do have to call them and have some masseuses come in and just because this episode is really going to be about a lot of things, but we're going to have this running theme of take care of yourself and self-care because
Yeah.
it's so important mentally, physically, getting all your checkups done because it's just a lot going on with this COVID
Mhm.
thing and then other, you know, diseases and
Yeah.
just
It's a different day and
pre-existing.
age.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we especially as Black people, we got to make sure that we take care of ourselves. So I'm
Definitely.
doing as good, like you said, as good as can be. You know, we had some stuff interrupt the joy of my weekend because I was
Mhm.
having a pretty good weekend.
Yeah.
Well, it started off like my Friday was pretty cool. It was fun. I went to work. I was doing some stuff. I had stuff planned for the weekend. And then the rest of the weekend still turned out pretty good. But it was just the news that we lost Chadwick Boseman just threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming. Even though we saw like photos of him earlier in the year where he was looking a little thinner than usual,
Mhm.
I was like, we'll hear from him when, it's time, and just looking forward to everything. And we're gonna definitely talk about him much more later. Um, but when you initially heard that news, what went through your brain?
I was in disbelief, man. I woke up and I saw some missed messages.
Mm,
Um, friends messages that people left me, and from a couple different places I saw. I had to go straight to Google or something like, please don't tell me this is true. You got to verify because
yeah.
they be having all kind of deaths on there that ain't really happened. So I was like,
Hmm.
please let these be, like one of those mistakes or
Yeah.
a horrible joke. It would still be a horrible joke if it was a joke, but
See, the
I
thing
mean, it
is,
was just sad. Just so I
I knew
felt
it was I knew it was real because I don't even be on like Facebook or Twitter like that.
hmm
So I never really see the false reports, but I'm on YouTube all the time. So as I'm scrolling up, so you got your personal pages of just regular people that I follow, and then I see like the radio stations, and then I see like the TV station. So I'm like, okay, dang,
yeah, all of these
dang.
confirmations, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was like that.
it was sad immediately. I
Yeah.
I just felt just crushed at that because I mean he definitely had, you know, a lot of potential. I saw him growing old, you know, in the craft, and just his
Hmm.
positive. He seemed like just a really positive guy, and you know, the films and stuff that, you know, he was featured in so far in his
Yeah.
short career. I mean, like, it wasn't, well, I mean, I would say it's a short career. Like, it hasn't been that long, you know, since we've
Yeah.
been able to enjoy him. So,
I
but
mean,
you know,
he
the
was,
movies he's made is very impactful. They've been very impactful.
it's been short in the sense that um, like he was on All My Children and he did a lot of television, he did a lot of spots. So he was working for a
Right.
long time, but it's short in the, on the level of, you know, being a household name, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely that. And there was so much more. You could just see the growth. And so
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about in just one more moment on just that moment. Cause I remember when I was scrolling and I told Yama, she was in the kitchen and she was like, nah, that's not true. I was like, boo, I wouldn't have even told you if I
Yeah.
didn't believe it was true. I wasn't even gonna like, cause I, before I even said anything, I made sure I scrolled down and then I saw, okay, I see this page, this page, this page. Those are regular people, but usually they are correct. But then
Right.
I kept scrolling and then I was like, okay, this is Hot 97. This is Power 106. This is, you know, V103. This
Right.
is such and such saying it on YouTube. And I was like, God, come on. No, 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 no. So we'll get back to
Yeah.
Chadwick, but still in the same realm as Chadwick. So we're going to talk about the importance of representation in media
Mm-hmm.
and our representation, our visibility as Black people in media, and also being in control of our own narrative in that media,
Yeah.
right? And how we are portrayed. So we can go back to all the way back to like the beginning of film and radio, where the portrayals of Black people were at the complete behest of white people in the
Mm-hmm.
minstrel shows. And that was
Right.
pretty much all you could do if you wanted to be in entertainment was, you know, literally tap dance for white people. Like that was it.
Exactly.
Just the Bojangles, right? And so we we've definitely come a long way from there, and just the importance of seeing yourself on the screen. And, you know, for those of you who've already caught it, we know how this relates to Chadwick. We saw the impact of Black Panther. But
Mm-hmm.
even before that, Chadwick had it was like a running joke. Like, if you need a biopic done of a
Okay.
powerful Black figure, get
Right.
Chadwick. Chadwick killed it playing Jackie
He,
Robinson.
he did it well.
He
Right.
killed
James
it
Brown.
playing James Brown. Like, he played James Brown. So, and I'm so disappointed that, like, Get On Up in 42, even though they left a mark, like people who watch them know them, but they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have that massive push. And I don't know, is it that it wasn't advertised to us right? Because I was aware when both those movies came out, but I don't really see, like, I saw posters on the bus, but I didn't see overwhelming marketing for either of those films, to be honest with you. He was also in another historical movie, not Marshall. I know he played
Thurgood.
Thurgood Marshall,
Okay. Yeah, Thurgood
but he was
Marshall.
in something else where he played a football player, a running back, and I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, but that was a real life portrayal of another person as well, and he killed that one as well. But yeah, he was just that representation, and I wanted to talk about representation because, like, when we see ourselves depicted a certain way, sometimes the media or fiction imitates real life, but sometimes you don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Right.
right? Because you can question whether, Menace to Society was a reflection of the so-called hood at the time, or did the hood start to see Menace to Society and, do that even more, right? The generations that came up and saw that. What are your thoughts on like representation and how all that plays out?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking to start back even before, like the first film, Birth of a Nation, and how, we were represented without us even being actually in it,
We're not
being
even
in
in the
blackface.
movie, right?
Exactly. And, and even after that, like, blackface, just white folks painting their face black, that lasted, for a while before black people were actually able to, portray a black person on screen. And still, like you said, it was that minstrel, um, character. And I mean, so to come all the way from there, and I can understand, like I've listened to different different explanations, like listening to older interviews or and stuff with older actors from back in the day when the roles were very limited, um, and people did what they had.
I'm not sure. My computer just went haywire.
Okay. Right. All right. But yeah, no, I was just saying though, just back in the day, understanding that people just had to do what they had to do, open up, just kind of break through the barriers, that were already up. And, that's how we got here. That's how a lot of our black actors were able to, make it this far. There are always going to be people who have to break through. But I think it's when people were able to, portray themselves, like thinking back in the day, what was that movie? Um, I haven't watched all of them. I used to really be fascinated with a lot of older films and stuff. Oh, Porgy and
Mm.
Bess, I believe, and what it was something else that I was thinking about, but just thinking about all of these, all like how far we've come and really taking control of our own images. Like from back in the day, we still have, like in the 90s, I would even say how we would be typecasted, black people would be typecasted to be a certain type of black person. And so even like right now, I think we're really starting to see how important it is to, be able to portray ourselves in different roles,
So on that, I want to talk about Hattie McDaniel. She's the first black woman to ever win an Oscar.
Right.
Couple of notes on this. So she wins the Oscar for her role in Gone with the Wind, where she plays this maid, this mammy role, right? Very minstrelly. And, that gets rewarded. So what does that do to the rest of the black actors? That tells you that, okay, you do this, not only will, this is the only thing that they're offering, but now you're getting rewarded for it on top of that.
Exactly.
So it's going to make more people accept those roles and say, okay, this may be our only way in. Second, at the actual ceremony, she's not allowed in the same room with everyone else. She wins, has to go through the back door and then go back out and sit in a separated room. So that's, to talk about how far we've come. And then I wanted to talk about the actual start of blaxploitation. And I remember watching this. So the first blaxploitation film was this movie called Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. And I remember watching the documentary about this. And there was this lady, and she was talking about, she was sitting in the movie theater, and she was older by the time this documentary came out. And she was like, oh, Lord, here they go again. The black boy about to die. And she was so surprised that the black person, the protagonist, didn't die at the end of the movie. They actually
Yeah.
won. Like, she had never seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that right there just was so important. And you talked about, being able to choose the roles that we want to play. Chadwick made sure one of his mandates was to not play gangsters and not play
Right.
certain negative images. Now, there was an episode of All My Children where he played like this addict, but I think that was like the last time he played anything like that, and he just refused to, on that higher level as he progressed in his career, to play those typecasted roles of black people. And there's a lot of black actors who go in and say, I purposely read for roles that are written for white people.
Mm.
And just to be in a movie that isn't a black movie or looked upon as a black movie, to show that, we exist in all realms of society and that we can play all these different roles. Because I watched this movie review channel called Double Toasted, and they always talk about the mystical, magical Negro role. So even if it's not negative, right? If it's not if it's not a negative portrayal, you're a gangster, you're a murderer, you're extra vicious or violent, then they cast you as this overly wise but still kind of subservient role, like The Legend of Bagger Vance, where Will Smith is this. He's the best caddy on the planet, but he's helping this white man win the golf tournaments, right? And he has all the information. The same thing, Eddie Murphy played one of those roles in, like, I think it was called Holy Man or something. And he was like this wise guy, and he helped the white people find love with each other, but he in his life is nothing, right? His life got nothing going on. He's just there to help these white people advance in their life because he got the wisdom to give to them. And it's so many roles like that. So it's like, okay, when do we actually get that power broker back? And so we had like moments, like the black exploitation period was a moment, and then it ended because we were extra critical of it as black people.
Right.
And you had the moment of like when Spike Lee was at his height, right? And we had a moment in the 90s where we had all the love stories, the Stella Got a Groove Backs, the Waiting to Exhales, the Love Joneses, all of those movies. And then it kind of just went away. And now it looks like we're at a resurgence of, actually, this time it feels like we have a little bit more control over our writing. We're not just behind the camera as the director. We're not just in front of the camera as the actors. We're in the writing rooms. We're producers. We're putting the money up. And a lot of those come from years of sacrifice of actors in the before time actually now having the funds to be producers. Because the thing is, there are a lot of movies that we look upon as black movies because the cast is black, but the money behind the movie was white. And you can see that in some of the storytelling and some of the elements that they let slip in there with some of those messages. So anything you wanted to share just about representation in general?
I mean, I was just wondering though, like, is there something more we could do? I don't like to just try to say what other people should have done, if I'm not in that role. I don't know what it takes, how difficult it is, how much money it takes, and who you need behind you, what you need to get certain things done. But I think that after this long in the game, we could have had, like, now we have, Tyler Perry built his studios. I'm not saying everybody could have done that, but I'm saying with all of the, if we, were more intentional about controlling the images. I think this is something that could have been done a long time ago, even about record labels and stuff like that. We always talk about how
Yep.
other people control the messages and control the images and everything coming out. But sometimes I think when we enter into different industries, we get satisfied with being accepted. And we already know like how, it's the issue sometimes when you have, these gatekeepers that come in and they just pretty much they blocking people coming in, just like, the folks who don't want us there in the first place. And but I think it would be just important for us to sacrifice. Like, we think about when people make it to these roles like in entertainment or, like these Hollywood success stories, and they're able to make a lot more money and have a lot more exposure. I think we would still need sacrifice, right? Like if enough of us had the same mindset and pulled our resources, and I'm not saying just the rich people, I mean like everyday people, as much as we spend money on, on different things, if we were focused and understood the importance of controlling, not just them letting us in to their space, but if we thought, well, let's create our own instead of continuously, being upset about it and waiting on
Yeah.
someone to make us mad or to disappoint us, and then we don't want to watch their stuff anymore. But it's like, well, at this point, we don't have anything, right, to put out ourselves. But I mean, I'm glad to see it now. I'm glad that Tyler Perry got his studios. Even though people complained about the roles that he played and, the movies that he was making, I mean, people will always complain no matter what. But I'm glad that he had that vision and that he thought to do something like this, to be able to control and be able to employ a lot
Yep.
more Black people to where we're not sitting
And
there waiting to be chosen.
one of the things that I respect about Tyler Perry is he intentionally went to a lot of people he grew up watching who couldn't find work anymore and
Mm-hmm.
put them in movies. Like
Right.
he was like a ignition to getting Loretta Devine back working. He was,
Mm-hmm.
very intentional about getting like Lynn Whitfield working
Mm-hmm.
again. And a lot of these,
All our classic
especially
Black
like
actors.
Black, not only just Black actors, but specifically Black actresses. Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember hearing who was it? It was Audrey Woodard, and she was talking about,
Alfred Woodard.
yeah, Alfred Woodard. Yeah. And she was talking about like Meryl Streep and all these other people, how difficult it is as a woman in Hollywood to keep getting roles, but it's that much more harder as a Black woman. And
Because
then
you're gonna get the same kind of roles.
yep. And it's only so many Black mamas, available at a
Right.
time, right?
Right.
So and who else was just talking about this? I don't know why her name isn't coming to me. She's like the best actress in Hollywood right now. She was
You
in
mean what's her name? From How to Get Away with Murder.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I knew who you talking about. I just can't think of her name either.
It's like on the tip of
um
my tongue.
I know. As soon as you said
As,
it, I'm
as,
like, well, now
as
her
soon
name is
as
escaping me.
as soon as it comes to you, you'll know
We
who I'm
gonna get
talking
it
about. But
right.
but she came up just recently talking about how difficult it is, because even in like she had a scene with Denzel in snap. My brain is just blanking. What is that movie she was just in with Denzel? Fences. So
Oh,
I've
right,
seen
right.
Fences the play,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's
Viola Davis.
always
Thank you. One of my friends.
Viola Davis.
Viola
Thank
Davis.
you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I don't know why
Sam, we
it just
too young.
wasn't
We
coming.
need to work on our memory.
It wasn't, her face was in my brain. Her
Right, right. I
name
knew
was
who you
just
was
like,
talking about.
I'm
Yeah.
blocking it out. But yeah, so Viola Davis. So in Fences, that movie is really like it's a monologue with other people in it, because
Mm-hmm.
that is the father's move. It's the father's play. it's all about him. He's usually the strongest character. I've seen the actual play a couple of times,
Right.
not the Denzel version, but the play. And then, but she held her own in that scene with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like she almost, and a lot of people agree that she outdid him in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you've seen the play, the actress in that scene never overshadows him because that's his like moment
Right.
of like shot. That's his monologue. But she brought so much energy to that role. But so we know her gravitas and we know her ability, but just the fact that it's that much more difficult for Black women in Hollywood to continue to get roles and even just to get the respect that they deserve. But back to Tyler Perry and his being intentional of putting those women on and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that they got those roles. I don't agree with, all that he does, but he had the vision. You were talking about wishing more people. Sometimes people just don't know to do certain things. And it's
Right.
all about exposure. And now that he's done this,
I
hopefully we
know there would
build
be
upon
many
it
more.
because I
Mm-hmm.
see I see another studio potentially coming from Issa Rae, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
just
for
her
sure. I'm
production
sure.
company and how she's moving. I see another coming up behind her in like I think Ava DuVernay and Ryan Coogler in what it is that they're doing. I think they're coming a little bit more from the behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
just even in the director pool, and even Michael B. Jordan, who has a production company and makes sure like one of his requirements is that the people on the set, like the lighting people,
Mm-hmm.
the
Moving the
PAs, the
cables
grips
and all that stuff. Yeah.
are there's a certain amount of women that have to be hired. There's a certain amount, there has to be Black people on set. And
Right.
so just being intentional about even those things,
Mm-hmm.
because even on Black movies, you got a white person holding the mic. That's a job
Yes,
that's
exactly.
taken away from somebody, and we aren't in the position of, we're in the position of putting our people on and we're not
Right.
always taking them,
Right.
and
Right.
just being
That's what I mean
intentional about
about being intentional.
every
Exactly.
level.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, representation in media, I feel like we're going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And with the with this push, and even in this time where everything is like, it feels crappy, but the awareness is on 15 out of 10. I think it'll push us in the right direction and keep us on the right path, because what happens is when we start to feel too comfortable, we start to lose sight and start to allow other things to distract us from what's really important. And
Right.
2020, like we said, it's 2020 vision. And vision sometimes are the things that you actually don't want to see. Like when you sweep stuff under the rug, that's stuff that you need to see because you actually need to sweep it up and clean it. But when you
Yeah.
sweep it under the rug, you're just kind of hiding it from yourself, but it's still there. So
Mm-hmm.
2020 is just, the rug has been lifted and now we're seeing all the dirt. It was there the whole time.
Yeah.
We're just seeing it. And now it's on us, because now we are aware that it's there. We can actually sweep it up, vacuum it, mop the floor, and stop sweeping stuff under the rug and handle it head on.
Exactly. And we can't.
Confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I think like part of that issue has been like the scarcity, the fact that a lot of us hadn't been able to enter those spaces, right? I think a lot of people are afraid to even ask for more, to act, to
Yeah.
demand that
And that's
they
what I
can't
was
even
saying.
ask. They have to demand. And there's certain things, even when we look at it like our position in society now, we are afraid to confront people about, people who are asking us. They don't have a problem asking us for things, asking us for our vote, asking us for, to speak up on
Mm-hmm.
certain things. But then when it comes to us and what we need and what we want, it's like we kind of like, checking each other like, girl, don't say that. Boy, don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's like we're
Yep.
afraid almost. And I
We
can
are.
understand it in those situations, even when you talk about like certain jobs and stuff. Um, a lot of people are afraid to even, I remember, a personal experience I had, even asking for a higher salary. I didn't even know that's something that we could do. Like, until
Yep.
I'm talking to other people. And I'm like, where'd you get that idea from? And actually, so I forgot who asked me. Somebody said, but they were like, "No, I learned that from my white coworker. That went
Yep.
in there, and we do the same job, and he was getting paid, so much more money." It's like all you got to do is ask. Like you don't know to negotiate your salary, and I'm like, I didn't know. I had no idea that I could even do that, right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of those we are so grateful to get into the door, to step inside the door finally, and it's like we forget that we have a mission. And that's why when we talked about where we have to go and seeing the vision, seeing where we have to go, that
That's why I
the
believe.
job is not done. We have so much more so much so far to go, and it doesn't end here. So we got to remember when we're in these positions, when we gain, all these resources and exposure, we have to use it to get us to keep pushing. We can't stop
Right.
and become complacent.
Sometimes we see it as a glass ceiling, and
Mhm.
sometimes there's not even any barrier there but our own exposure to what's possible.
Right. Right.
Right. So you have the example of the crabs in the barrel, which we are constantly seeing. Crabs in
Yep.
a barrel has no lid over it because the person who's capturing the crabs understands that there's no need to put a lid on it because they're going to
Mhm.
pull each other down. So you
Right.
have people in your family, if you have a vision that's outside of the scope of what they understand is possible, they will
Mhm.
try to talk you down,
Boy, tell me about it.
not out of just not out of not believing in you, right?
Right.
Not out of trying to hold you back, out of fear, out of I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
That's not possible. Please
Mhm.
don't do. They don't want you hurt.
Right. Exactly.
They're doing it
Exactly.
with
And
the
so it's not like their
intention,
intentions are bad. It's
right?
just that it's that fear though, but that's what that fear does. It stops you. It
And
hinders you
sometimes
from moving forward, from getting what you
we
need.
look at sometimes we look at the crabs in the barrel as if they're trying to pull each other down to hold each other back.
Right. Like they
But
hating on us.
maybe they're pulling each other down. There's like, we don't know what's outside of there. Come back
Mm,
down to safety.
mm,
Sometimes it is negative, but sometimes it's just people care about you and they
right.
don't want you to fly too close to the light because they
Yeah.
think, you're going to get burned. But
Right.
sometimes that light is the light that I'm going to shine on everybody and we're all going to get out of this situation. Help
Yep.
me come up. But if we're
That's
not thinking on that level, we don't
yeah.
know it because
Exactly.
I just made it to the NBA. I barely
Hmm.
made it. I can't get in
Right.
here asking a bunch of questions.
Or
I
speaking up
barely made it in
for things.
Hollywood. I
Hmm.
just got the audition. I can't go in here, causing a ruckus.
Hmm.
So that that type of mentality, and then even still, you don't even see it as a possibility of you owning your own. You just got accepted to their stuff. So you're
Right.
like, okay, the the way up is through this system because it's the only system that I see. This is the one I
Yeah.
have access to. But
Right.
then, so sometimes the best thing is to be like a Tyler Perry or a Spike Lee. Why? Because they were never accepted. So
Hmm.
they had to even make it, had to create their own way.
Right.
Innovation is usually, built out of necessity.
Hmm. I wanted to
Creativity isn't. Go ahead.
I wanted to just point out that is why I feel that we need to attach ourselves to those. Like we have this idea of like, pulling each other up as we climb, lifting as we climb. And I think when we get into those situations where, instead of criticizing or projecting our fears onto other people when they're trying to go beyond, even though we don't see it. We talked about a couple weeks ago, like even with Shirley Chisholm talking about when she didn't see herself becoming president. She was like, I don't even, I don't even think it's possible, but I'm going to try it. You know what I mean? I'm going to go and do it. And speaking a lot about going after things you don't even see. Think about our ancestors who were shackled, like who were enslaved, and they didn't see where we will be today. When President Obama was sworn in, and you saw, people over 70, 80, 90 years old crying because they were like, I didn't think this would ever be possible, from where we came from. And I think we have to be very careful, especially in today's culture where we're extra critical about everybody. We always, even if it's a joke being made about people, about, how they can't do something, or, how they're corny, or, low budget and stuff like that. We have to be careful because those are already the people who are courageous enough to reach that far. And so we can't try to pull each other down, because there will be people like a Tyler Perry, like a Spike Lee, like a Dame Dash, who, like people who are more bold and will go after that leadership and that ownership role. But instead of us pulling them down, because we already know they won't be accepted by the others, we have to make sure that we're not also pulling them down. And it's not, even at that point, like it's not fear sometimes, like a lot of times it is fear, but sometimes when it is that other thing, the negative thing, we like to joke, and we crack jokes and make memes about people, and and sometimes it's all fun and games, but sometimes it's really hurtful, and we jump on board and we do dismiss these people and say what they can't do or shouldn't do. And, I think we just have to be very careful to not discourage people who are trying to go for something that you might not see it. They might not even see it, but they're bold enough to go after it, and it's going to help all of us. Like, when it comes to somebody like Tyler Perry, which I have a question from one of my friends, in regards to Tyler Perry. But when it comes to somebody like him, we'll talk about how corny his movies are, how low budget and this and that, and we won't support. A lot of us do. I mean, he knows his audience, and I listen to him talk about that. He knows who supports them. Like, he's confident. He makes his content for the people who follow him, who constantly support him. So you hate on him if you want. This man is making his money. He's doing what he needs to do. But yeah, I think we just have to really be careful of that and not being overly critical. But let me ask, she has a question. How do you guys feel about the fact that Tyler Perry is considered a non-threatening Negro? The idea that an alpha black male wouldn't have been given permission to open a studio. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's true? Is that a true statement to you, or have you heard that before?
I've heard it before. There's this theory that my brother and I have about even rappers. Like, if you look at rappers, you'll see that a lot of them are short, right? Like, when you see them in person, you're like, hold on, is that you? A lot of them are, like, in real life, shorter than they look on. And we look at the projection of the people who are actually physically imposing, and how, how their careers last. And we have this, running joke, like Killer Mike is a big dude. His career is, I would say, it's good, but he's not on the superstar level, right? He's not lambasted by the media as this huge figure. And he had to go his own route. But then you got, little people who end up blowing up. So we always have, like, seen
what you
that.
Got on little people? Okay. What you got on little people?
Like, Are they looking at us as, okay, we can get this person? They talk tough, but they're not really that much of a threat.
Mm.
And then even like I expect that this person is talking about like the effeminate roles or the Medea dressing up.
Right.
I do believe there's an element of possibility of truth to that, right? But we talked about privilege. We talked about getting in the room and creating the exposure. So what? So now it's there. We got it now. We have the access. Not only do we have the access, we have the idea that this is possible. So now all we have to do is, instead of talking down to Tyler Perry, talk to him and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to utilize your studio for this amount of time, do a collaboration with you. We're going to branch off into our own studio, and then we'll have a Disney, Fox, Sony, Universal of just Black studios. And we won't be in full competition with each other. We can still do business with each other. We can still do, collaborative projects. You see, before a movie comes on, you see like on big budget movies, you see about 5 graphics of production companies. That shows you how many production companies were involved in putting this money into this film.
Because it takes a lot of money.
It takes a lot of money. It takes more than $1 million, right? $1 million on a big budget movie is one person's salary.
Right.
And probably
They're
not
paying
even
$1 million
the person at the top
for
of the
a 5-minute music video. They paying that for music videos.
So we're talking about money that we can't fathom, right? So all of these production companies, you have your major studios, then you have your smaller production companies, then you have your animation studios, then you have your this and that. Why can't we build off of what Tyler Perry has done? I don't watch all of his content, right? I used to and enjoy a lot of it, but some of it I think could actually have better quality. But there's a better way to talk to him about it instead of talking at and downing it. Appreciate what he's doing, because honestly, if it wasn't for Tyler Perry, I doubt that we would be in this new Black renaissance, because he kept Black people in the movie theaters in that time where we had that lull. Tyler Perry was taking his own money, making sure that his movies had actual theatrical releases.
Right. And this is why so my perspective on, my answer to the question, I guess, is relating to that, like how it was him putting up his money. This is Tyler Perry producing things, even though like he didn't have the support of the other groups, the other, big companies, big names, he's doing this with his own money. So, and even when people talk about him, dressing up as Medea and stuff, he spoke about it and like nobody made him do it. This is his film. He was saying that he didn't even think it was that, that funny, or he didn't even really want to do it, but his audience loved it. And the people who support him, they wanted it, they liked it. And so nobody forced him to do it. And so I have always seen like the same criticism about Tyler Perry, is that, like this whole running joke. I mean, we hear about it with a lot of especially Black male actors, about how they have to dress up, as women to get things. This man this is his own money. Who is making him do it? And then who has accepted him? It's not like he was getting Medea, you know what I mean? Like Medea just took off in regular, in these big Hollywood movies. This is still him putting up his money. And so, but I think, we just have to,
And Hollywood still didn't support him. Even
That's
with
what I'm
the
saying.
Medea. So it's difference. There's a difference between, so Dave Chappelle was on a talk show and he talked about how the studio, I think it was that movie that he did with Martin. Was it Blue Streak? It might have been Blue Streak.
Martin.
Dave Chappelle and Martin. And they wanted Dave Chappelle to wear a dress in a scene, and he refused. And they brought like 5 different people who worked on their set to convince him to do it, and he refused. That right there does happen. We're not taking that away. But two things can be true. Like you can
Right.
have nobody ever, at no point did I ever question Martin's sexuality, his manhood, or his humor when he was Shanae. He was
Right.
so good at playing Shanae, we all forgot
We
Shanae was Martin.
enjoyed it. Yeah, we enjoyed it.
We
Like it was
forgot that it was
him.
him playing her.
Yeah, yeah.
That episode with Shanae and Kid from Kid and Play, still hilarious today. And like you had Jamie Foxx playing Wanda, you had Flip Wilson playing the female character
Yeah, I
that
know. I
he
forgot.
played. I can't remember her name, but this is something like Flip Wilson had his own show as well. Geraldine, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was, that narrative is out there, and I do believe it in Hollywood that they do try to effeminize Black men to make us less threatening, but it can also just be funny, right? Because Miss Doubtfire isn't a Black man.
Right,
So,
exactly.
you know what I mean? Robin
And
Williams
so many
dresses
others,
up like a woman.
right? So many
Exactly.
other white men and non-Black men have done similar roles, you know, for years, and it's
Exactly.
not spoken about the way that it is with us. I think, but
It's because
sometimes I think we limit ourselves. We put that cap on ourselves, or
we
put
limit
ourselves in that
ourselves, but
box.
also our position in society. Same thing with the violence. When we're violent, it reflects all of us. When a white person dresses up as a woman, it reflects him in that role. When a Black person does it, it is a reflection on all of us. So I understand it, but here comes that magical word, nuance. There's a difference between Dave Chappelle's situation and Tyler Perry's situation. It's just different scenarios. It looks the same from far away, but the closer you get to it, you're like, oh, okay, those are different elements. Those are different conversations. That's different levels of control in the narrative of how these things are playing out. So, and it's not like Tyler Perry doesn't play other roles. He plays multiple characters in all of his stuff. So he'll be himself. He'll be Medea's brother, who's also a funny character. Like he plays all of it. So it's whatever. But my point is there's still a better way to have the conversation. There's a better way to broach it. Still, and everything that I talk about, there's a better way. Because even like with Spike Lee and his criticism of Tyler Perry, I think it could have been done better. It could have been done behind the scenes. It could have been the fact that, right, and John Travolta playing a woman in Hairspray. Exactly. And whoever else played it before him. So, but my point being, there's a better way to have these conversations so that we can collaborate. Spike Lee has trouble funding a lot of his films, right? He had trouble funding Malcolm X. He had trouble doing these other things. Imagine if Spike would have built a relationship with Tyler Perry instead of coming out criticizing him, being behind the scenes saying, I appreciate the business side of what you're doing. Now, here is my advice as somebody who's been in it a little bit longer than you. My advice is this way. Maybe we can, tone down that form of representation. Maybe we can hire a writer's room. Maybe you don't have to write everything. Maybe you can do this, and then, come to him with a Eddie Murphy, a who else, a John Singleton, and have like, hey, we see what you're doing. You're keeping us in the theaters. Now let's all support Tyler. John Singleton has a Tyler Perry studio produced movie. Spike Lee has a Tyler Perry produced studio movie. Ava DuVernay, Ryan Coogler, all the others, Lena Waithe, they all say, all right, we're going to work specifically with Tyler Perry Studios, build up that brand, have our content come out through there. We know. So not only do you have the Tyler Perry originals, but then you have the other different elements and different voices and different representations, but all at the same time building up Tyler Perry Studios to be a force in Hollywood. Because, okay, y'all want the Black creators' talent. you're going to have to come and really negotiate with us. For us to do anything with you guys, you're going to have to pull us away from Tyler. Right? That's how it should be. You're going to have to pull us away from Tyler. You're going to have to pull us away from Issa. You're going to have to pull us away from Lena.
Right.
In order for us to even have a conversation with you.
Right. So, but this is why I was going to say, when it comes to like how we criticize each other, how we put each other down, when it comes like when people criticizing Tyler Perry for playing Medea. And that's like, you know, like you said, he played several other roles. He had several different, you know, there are a lot of times he wasn't even in it, you know, or something, you know, there were other people, you know, highlighted. I think we need to also be very aware, like he is a human being too. He see who's throwing shade at him, who's, you know, especially like you said, instead of going behind, you know, going behind closed doors and having a man to man or woman to man talk, you know, talking about what the grievances are or how they believe he can do something a little different or help him, you know, not just criticizing, but helping. And I think we need to be aware also, like he's not gonna have to owe you anything once he does make it. Like now that he has his own studio, he can pass you up. Just like, you know, he remembered that you was, you know, talking about him and didn't support him. Cause a lot of us are quick to be like, you know, I never support. I see a lot of people talking about they'll never support anything that Tyler Perry had to do. It was people who had a problem celebrating him opening his studios because they felt that he sold out black men by playing Medea. And it's like, what have you even done? What are you even doing to try to help your people? And he didn't. I think it's just ridiculous because he does have that power. This is his. He can reject you if he doesn't want to work with you. You know, it's not because we're gonna automatically look at him like, well, you're the only black owned studio, and so you have to let us in. And we have to, like, that's just not how the world works. That's like, you know, it'll be great, you know, if he does, and I feel that he will, just knowing his role and knowing his, you know, I'm sure he'll automatically take this on as a responsibility, you know, as someone who's helping to carry the culture and drive the culture forward. I think that he will be more forgiving, but it's not right. People should not have downed him the way that they have. I think we really need to really be mindful about that and not tear each other down just so viciously. You can have your criticism. You can not like something, but that does not mean to cancel and tear down a person for doing something, you know, going on their route. You did not help. You didn't contribute. So who are you to tear it down?
I buy black movies that I don't like just so that I have
Just to
bought it.
support. Mm-hmm.
I will rent something and not watch it.
Right. I do the same thing. I bought movie tickets just because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just, you know,
I'll
just
buy
because.
the ticket for that movie and go see something else.
Right.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the support. It needs to be seen that
Right.
we support each other. It
And it should be
is,
automatic.
but again, like we said, the representation, sometimes it's about us not knowing it's possible. And us sometimes it starts off, and it's just like your parents. Sometimes when they don't want to let you go, they don't want to let you venture out. It starts off as, okay, I want to protect them. And then it turns toxic when there's this tight grip and you don't want to let any element go.
Right.
And it's like, okay, this is now becoming weird, right? It's like, okay, what's happening here? Why don't you want this person that your whole job is to raise this person so that they can take care of themselves? So are you questioning them, or are you questioning your ability to actually raise a person? The same thing with our overall community. Are you questioning that person, or you're questioning the possibility of it happening for you and anyone else? And so that's what we have to become aware of. Again, lifting that veil, hiding from what's under the rug that we keep sweeping under. We can't clean it if we don't know it's there, or you got so used to sweeping it under the rug, you forgot how much trash is under there. And, it's important for us to support one another, and our representation, I believe, like I said, I believe we're getting to a place where we are advancing, and I believe more people are coming around.
Right.
So we just have to make sure, and now this has made me want to talk about this even more, because we can talk about this in so many parts of the media. Because I want to go in detail about one of my favorite rap labels. I love the name of the label. I love the person behind the label. And I'll talk to you off air to see if we can go over
Okay.
that tomorrow. But I do
All
want to
right.
get back to Chadwick. So our highlight reel is Chadwick Boseman, because, like we spoke to a
Our
little bit
Black
earlier,
Panther.
our Black Panther, our King T'Challa, our Jackie Robinson, our James Brown, our Thurgood Marshall, our everything. And he was, so let's talk about this. Rewind. We found out that Chadwick has been battling colon cancer since 2016. This is before, like, they started filming Black Panther.
Yeah.
This is around the time that he first played the role in Captain America Civil War. And he was like, he filmed Captain America Civil War, Black Panther, Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. He filmed 21 Bridges. He has some other movies that are still coming out. The Five Bloods with Spike Lee, all while battling colon cancer.
Yeah.
At no point did he tell his directors, did he tell the studio, because he didn't want to be looked at, because he knew that would become the story. That would become the narrative around his work, and he wanted his work to live on. And he did an interview on Sway about Black Panther, and he was saying that he was in communication with two terminally ill from cancer children, who they were saying that they were holding on to make sure that they got a chance to see the film.
Wow.
And he broke down in the interview talking about when they passed away, how much it hit him. At no point knowing that he was suffering from the same thing. And at no point did he make it about him and what he was going through. He was still doing like Make-A-Wish visits with people. He was in touch with people. He was doing all types of, he never missed out on the interviews and the media
Right.
responsibilities. He did everything and worked out and exercised and all that stuff that he had to do while undergoing surgery and chemo and radiation is just ridiculous, right?
A
To
real
even
life
fathom.
superhero. For real.
Exactly. So I just want to make sure that we took the time to actually celebrate his life, his career, and just him as a person. Like, just hearing everybody who knew him talk about him, just have everything positive to say about him.
Right.
So, rest in power to Chadwick. What did you
Yeah.
want to share?
Oh man. I cried. I cried a little bit when I heard that. And I thought about it because my grandfather also passed away from colon cancer. And I remember, back then I finding out about just, I didn't know too much about it, besides the news from him, but immediately started getting into, like, the men in my life, just making sure that they go and try to check up on, check themselves and, do all they can. Cause a lot of times, like, we're just so busy working and so just unaware of everything, and for men and women, in this day and age, we just have to make sure that we are doing all we can. So when we talk about like the self-care, that's also, it's not just indulging you in all the things that you want, but it's also being careful, and being mindful of what you just everything around you. I don't know. It's there are some
Yeah.
illnesses that we can't necessarily that we don't necessarily control. We don't have a power over. Some people are affected like from birth, from certain things. So it's not always something controllable, but a lot of times we could just be more aware.
Hmm.
Just thinking about the foods that we eat, think about our lifestyles, and you know what I mean, just stress, just a lot of different things that contribute to um, our well being and our
Yeah.
I think, we just need to all be just very because he was young, 43 years old. I mean,
And let's talk about that 43, right? So he was 43 and he died from colon cancer. And they said when they found it, it was already at stage 3.
right.
So um I want to move into the section that talks about long live the king, right? And I put long live the king because first of all, we know Chadwick Boseman played King T'Challa in Black Panther, but there's something about self-care that we really have to talk about. And I want to talk about just the hospital system. So
Yeah.
usually they don't even like to give colonoscopies, the exam to see if you have colon cancer until people are over the age of 50. Chadwick found out that he had stage 3 colon cancer when he was what, 39,
Mhm.
because he's 43. He got diagnosed 4 years ago. That's 39, right? My math right? So they weren't, he wasn't of the age that most hospitals are going to give non-Hollywood, non-rich people colonoscopies.
Right.
Now, we know that our diet as Black people, both African Americans and in the diaspora, are different. And I say the diaspora, it usually wouldn't include like Africa, but with the saturation of foreign rice and all the food stuffs that come from these aid countries like America
Right.
and countries in Europe,
A lot
we
of soy
know
products and stuff
by
coming in.
yeah, soy products, the all the preservatives and things that have to be put in food if it's going to be shipped from one country to
Right.
another that isn't in the regular diet of people who are on the continent and in other places like the islands where they grow a lot of their food and they kill their meat right there on the spot. So
Mhm.
now your body isn't used to digesting these processed foods. Now, even here in America, where our bodies are used to digesting processed foods, it's still not natural.
Right.
So
We
we
just
have to
adapt.
look at exactly, but we have to look at these ages. So he is 7 years away right now at the age of his death from getting a colonoscopy. Now, just think about that. That doesn't make any sense, right?
Way too late.
He was already at stage 3, which means he had the cancer, just it wasn't bothering him before they even discovered it.
Mhm.
And they weren't going to do the test 10 years ago. So we have to do something about how we are, dealing with medicine and
Right.
being adamant about requesting these things.
Mhm.
Because I heard some other people talking and they were, talking about they had a father that passed away from colon cancer and they were like 45 and had to, almost fight the doctor just so that they can get one done. It's like, it's family history. And so what? I'm not 50, right?
Right.
It doesn't, it just doesn't make any sense. So we have to be very vigilant and really demand medical treatment from our, just demand all of the tests. Not saying be a hypochondriac,
Right.
but just make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we
But
go on these normal
mhm.
doctor visits. Go ahead.
Right. But doesn't it relate to like what I was saying earlier about us not even knowing that we can request and demand certain things, in the workspace and
Exactly.
and we don't know. a lot of times. And I think, and we also just trust when, especially certain roles like a doctor or, just a more respected role in society, we just believe anything that they would say or recommend. But even I remember I was studying nutrition, and this was, early on when I decided to go vegan years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just looking at the food pyramid and and the curriculum and everything they were teaching in the nutrition program. And I'm like, but we're not all made the same. Like our systems don't even process, things differently,
Right.
because when you look at from different regions, a lot of people don't even know, like, you can eat, there are different diets, like based on your blood type, based on, which region you come from, your geographic location and everything. Because, and our bodies are different. Some people can take dairy. A lot of us are lactose intolerant, but I remember I had a friend and we would go out to eat and stuff, and she was like deathly allergic to dairy, but she would just pop these pills, whatever pills her doctor gave her, to kind of like patch it up, because she would be so sick eating dairy, but she was just used to popping a pill to get over it real quick. But I'm like, this is not healthy. If your body is telling you, that was one important thing that I learned from going vegan. And this is like my sophomore year in college. And I was so grateful to be around people like on that journey that helped support me and gave me that knowledge, like led me on that path to seek that knowledge. Because had I not known, like, I would have kept going that route, and my grandmother passing away my freshman year, from it was actually several different types of cancers. Like they couldn't even pinpoint it, I don't believe. But it just really, that made me take the role, like to try to influence my family to change the lifestyle. So I went cold turkey, like overnight. I was in a dorm and I was like, you know what, tomorrow, that's it. And I, just being more intentional, I would start researching more, like, the Africans, we need, as African people, we have different, dietary needs, and,
Yep.
and like you said, even though, Americans and, other people in the diaspora, we've adapted, our bodies have adapted to these foreign substances and different things, because that's all we've been used to, a lot of these processed foods. And just because your body is moving, just because, you're okay right now, it doesn't mean that it's good on you. It's good for you, because
Yep.
it wears and tears on your body. That's like, your car can be running off a certain type of gas that's not, your car is still move if it's a gas that's in there, that it's not recommended by the dealership or, the manufacturer. But eventually it will break down, or it will have other problems, because you're not giving it what it needs. Our bodies are just so important. We got to really think to question a lot of things. We
And
know
we
how poor the medical system, this information is. We know it's not for us. We have to really be more diligent about seeking that information and really just taking the lead on our own health.
and we only get one, right? We only get
One,
one body.
yes,
Like, we watch science fiction and we see people transfer their consciousness into robots and all that. That's fiction. We get one body and we have certain organs that can't be replaced, right? You
right, right.
can live without a kidney. You
Mm-hmm.
can live without a gallbladder. But you shouldn't have to, because even
Right.
though you can take a spleen out, it
Mm-hmm.
is there for a reason.
For a
Like, it
reason,
has
right?
a job. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be missing something when it's gone. So better to take care of it, and better to be educated. But that's one of the
Definitely.
things, we're not educated about it. So, we talk about long live the king, but we want to have everybody live long in the ways that we are in control of, right? We don't control
Right.
everything, like you said,
Right.
but some of these cancers are because of what we're doing and what we're putting in our body
Definitely.
and what we're exposing ourselves to.
And not being
Because
active, not like we take in a lot and we're not doing a lot. Like, even when it comes to like some friends would like joke, make jokes and stuff talking about, I'm the most detoxing person they know, because I'm like, if I know if I'm going to be putting something in my body or on my body, like you said, and so I only got one of them. I'm only going to have one of them, right? And so I have to be mindful about it. And if I need to cleanse, you know what I mean, cleanse and get it out of my system, I'm going to do that. And a lot
Yep.
of us, we don't even, I think a lot of times we don't even know. Now, I will say, like, just some old traditions that, like these African retentions, a lot of us will, carry certain habits, certain things that we learn from elders, in our families that are, healthy for us, or, like detoxing, and things like that. But we have to just, again, like you pointed out, we are being fed a lot of processed stuff. There are a lot of other harmful chemicals and stuff that go to the products that we use that seeps into your body, like deodorant. You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to sweat for a reason. If you're using like something that makes you stop sweating, you're keeping all those toxins in. And so it's just simple things like that. We just have to really be just be careful and just research and read and just listen, like follow each other's lead, who like the people who are dedicating a lot, dedicating their lives to finding this information and getting it to people like Dr. Sabia. I was happy to learn about him
Mm-hmm.
years ago when I started my journey,
Mm-hmm.
of being going plant-based. And it's just so much out there to learn, but the information is out there. There's plenty of books and videos and other people who will help you, holistic nutritionists and things who will help you, um, just live a healthier life. And we just have to really push that, because obesity is something, in our families and our children. I hate to see it. A lot of
Let's
our
talk
children,
about
we're not even starting them off right. We got to do better,
obesity
y'all.
for a moment. So we see all these, images and commercials about malnutrition in different parts of the world, namely Africa. They
Mhm.
have this random white person. I want to see because obesity is malnutrition.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Malnourishment just means that you are lacking nutrients. If
Hmm.
you are becoming obese, that means your body is holding in things that aren't being digested, that are not supposed to be there. Obesity is malnutrition just as much as not having food is malnutrition.
Yeah.
Because malnutrition comes in a lot of different forms. Just means
Right.
that your body isn't being nourished.
Right.
Just because you eating Twinkies doesn't mean there's no nourishment in a Twinkie.
It's
Honestly,
fillers.
there's no
You need a bunch of
there's no
fillers.
nourishment once you take food out of the microwave. That's why I hate reheating my food in microwaves,
Yeah.
because the science came out and told us that it is sucking all the nutrients out, even if it's a
Exactly. It
home cooked
kills it.
meal.
It kills
So
it.
now you're just eating for taste.
Right.
So we're malnourished and we're doing it to ourselves. So I want to see a commercial where, an African person is over here with a commercial with a bunch of overweight American children with a Sarah McLachlan song playing in the background, asking
Okay.
for donations. Let's
Okay.
create that image.
Because
But
we are
we have to
starving.
be exactly. You can be full and starving because your body is asking for, okay, I feel full, but where's I,
Right.
I'm not spreading anything out to the rest of the body, to the bloodstream. Where's the nutrients? Where are the vitamins? Where are the minerals? Where's all this
Yeah.
stuff? And even what we
Yeah.
call mineral water in these plastic bottles, it's stuff in there that's not like, there shouldn't be ingredients to water.
Right. In your water.
If your water has ingredients on it, something is wrong. It should just say water. Like if
It's
your orange
fortified.
juice has ingredients, it's wrong. Like it comes, where it comes from. It comes from the fruit. It's just you squeeze it and juice comes out. If there's
Yeah.
more ingredients to it than that, it's wrong. Something's wrong with it.
That's
And
funny, because
so,
I make sure we buy, I used to always have a juicer and stuff. Now I don't have a
mhm,
juicer, but I buy, they have a lot of the fresh squeezed juices and stuff. So those are,
mhm.
if anything, I try to drink more water. So I rarely even bring juices home, but when I do, it is, Well, I make my watermelon juice and stuff. I'll just blend it up and strain
Mm-hmm.
it. But yeah, I mean, we just have to be just really we like you said, when it comes to taste, we'll be satisfied because it tastes good or because we full. With that whole thing with the itis, having the itis and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we eating good over here. No, you're actually eating bad. You know, and that's why you feel like that. You feel sluggish
Yep.
because all of that stuff is dragging you down. You know, I think we really just need to, you know, when a lot of us, and I find a lot of adults, you always associate like picky eating with children and stuff, but a lot of adults don't like to eat healthy things, you know, because it don't taste good. And it's like, at some point, you got to grow out of that. You better eat something
Yeah.
that don't taste good or find a way to make it taste good to you, you know, and not that don't mean drown it in cheese and ranch and all kind of stuff like that. We gotta find a way. We gotta find
Ah,
more creative ways. That's why I love like Tabitha Brown, you know, her being really creative with vegan recipes and stuff. Um, I used to try to share a lot of, you know, different vegan recipes with friends. I still do, you know, but I think we just have to make it more of a trend because people do follow. I remember like I used to get like the kale wraps and people be like, "Ugh, you eating all that green stuff? What is that?" And I'm like, you just have to, you know, I didn't used to like mushrooms, but you know, going plant-based, you know, I had to get well, that's, you know, I ate a lot of mushrooms to, you know, provide other nutrients that I wasn't getting. And I mean, you can adapt, you know, basically
yeah.
it's the mind thing. Anything when you put your mind to it, it can happen. You just got to change your mindset. We need to change our mindset. And also when it comes to like just the medical thing, a lot of us are used to being like one important lesson, the most important lesson or thing that I learned from changing my diet early on was
Mm-hmm.
learning how to listen to my body. Like whenever I was sick, I felt something coming on or you know whatever it was, my body will always tell me, and I didn't know what that was at first. You know, I was like, am I becoming extra sensitive now? You know, and I think because we're used to patching it up, like I was saying, with my friend popping up the pills to make her, you know, become tolerant for, you know, the dairy products. I'm like, you know, you have to stop. We have to like, even when it comes to like medicine, over the counter medicine or prescription medicine and stuff like that, we
Mm-hmm.
just think about all of that stuff and how it affects when you read the warning labels and stuff and you hear on these commercials the side effects, you know, it might cause this and that. Why would you think that that's good for you? We can't just pop it because it, you know, it'll make us feel good temporarily. We got to really listen to our bodies and get down to the bottom of it. Like it's just so many different layers. There's so many things to learn, but we can
When
and we should
when the side
prioritize.
effects when the side effects are worse
Ooh,
than
wait.
the darn thing you're trying to treat. Hold on. I just had a sore elbow. You
Right.
saying
I ain't trying to
this
go
medicine causes suicidal thoughts and actions. What in the world? Like, hold up, hold up.
No, thank you. That's what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
It's
Mm-mm.
crazy because like I remember every time I like am physically hurt and I get prescribed like a muscle relaxer, like
Mhm.
I'm not taking that ever again. First of
Yeah,
all, if I don't know, like you said, your body is speaking to you. I'd rather know when the pain is actually gone. Because if the pain is
exactly.
there, that means my sensors are going off trying to tell me
Mhm.
not to do something,
Right,
not to
right.
overstress this muscle or this bone or this thing or this joint. So
Hmm.
if I'm on a muscle relaxer, I could, just be walking around doing more damage than anything else because I can't feel
Exactly.
myself doing the damage. I want to
Exactly.
know, okay, this hurts here. Now, I'll put some ointment or something on, but I don't want to deaden the pain.
Hmm.
I want to know, okay, did the pain go away by itself? Did I
Right,
treat it right? Or am I just not feeling it because it's so numb that I don't know what's
right,
going on with my body?
right.
And
We
and
can't
that's
get comfortable
dangerous
with
as
that.
well.
It's so
But
dangerous.
so I just wanted to, give just that moment because this came as a surprise to everyone. The passing of Chadwick Boseman, and I'm sad. Like
Yeah.
my feelings are hurt, and I saw just so much more, and just so many people replaying the speech he gave at Howard's graduation. An alum of HBCU, alum of Howard University, go Bisons. And it's just, he was so inspirational and just had a heart of giving. So I want to make sure that, we say long live the king, rest in power, Chadwick Boseman. And we're not done talking about him, because our deconstructed is Black Panther.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be? And we talk about representation in the media. We talk about what our support as a Black audience can show Hollywood, and what our representation in, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, does for us and our senses and our just esteem and even our efficacy.
So important.
It is very important. And you saw it in the youth, you saw it in the elders, you saw so many people who would never go see a superhero movie showed up to support this.
Right.
When the movie comes on and those drums just start playing, like, I saw this in theaters 3 times. I saw it at home. Can't even count how many times I've watched it. And it's just like, it does something. It pulls me in every time. Like, especially as somebody who is like so in love with Africa and my roots, just hearing those drums does something to me. I've sat in my car and just listened to not even the soundtrack. I listen to that as well, but just listen to the score of the movie. And it just does something to me. What did you feel when you first saw this film?
Man, I felt like it was euphoric. We went, I was in Egypt at the time, and we took a bunch of students. It was probably like a group of 20 of us that went to go see it. And when I tell you, I was so excited. The children were like, they've never seen me that excited before. And I just couldn't help it. I'm in the theater, like that typical person in the theater, like, oh, yes. With Killmonger's lines and stuff, I was like, oh my God, I didn't imagine something, seeing something like that. Like, that was so powerful. I remember just thinking about when we think about like Princess Tiana being the first Black princess, in a Disney cartoon and stuff. Which she was a frog most of the time, but still.
She was a frog about 85% of that film.
Right. But I mean, Black Panther, though, from the different perspectives, from the conversations, the representation, everything going on in that film. I mean, it was just it was beautiful. I mean, and I really took to like Killmonger's character and like, and just saw, because I'm seeing the story, right? I'm seeing like how it relates to us. That not just the story, not just the Hollywood production, but how it relates to us and how so many of our people can relate to this story and see ourselves in it and see the importance. And like you said, like loving your Blackness and your Africanness, and wanting to connect to your roots and things like that. I felt the same way, and I felt like this movie put it in such a way that it would make it more desirable, for people to do so. Like, people who probably wouldn't even thought about it that way. If people did actually watch this movie and like, think about it in that way, or, just to listen to it though, because you saw how he felt, Killmonger felt with the words exchange and stuff, learn about his father and how he was betrayed, and and how like you didn't come back to save me, and or something like, and it just really, it was deep. That was such a deep story. And that was my favorite soundtrack, done by Kendrick Lamar. That was my favorite. I already knew he was gonna make it dope, but I mean, I listened to that soundtrack more than any other album. Like,
that soundtrack came out maybe like a week before the movie came out. I listened to that probably all of 2018, and I still just throw it on.
I never stopped listening to that soundtrack.
Yeah,
and It was just such a vibe. The movie, the soundtrack, everything.
I love the fact of what the movie did, where they had, so Wakanda was so isolated, right? And they isolated themselves from the rest of the world in the sense of protection. And it
Right.
sounds a little bit like what we were just talking about earlier, where you so much want to protect your children, or you want to protect the people that you love, that you end up stopping the potential of what they can do. Like,
Right.
look at the
Right.
potential of what Wakanda could have done had they not been so, because they were isolation out of protection on the surface, but it was really out of fear of what's happening on the outside. But
Right.
they had so much they could have been offering this entire time, that they let all this stuff happen around them. That the destruction of the continent, and we know that it's fiction, but we're looking at it still in the terms of the realistic world,
Exactly.
even as it is represented in this work of fiction. We need our fiction as well. So
Right.
the thing is, the message is still there. So you have a character like T'Challa, who's all he's been raised in by his father and his ancestors is, protect Wakanda in this way by being isolated. Then you have, even before you get to Killmonger, you have Nakia, Lupita's character, who is also saying there is so much more we could be doing.
Right.
Right. So you have her already in the ear saying we need to be out there. It isn't until Killmonger comes with the same message, but to the over extreme, that they realize, oh, we messed up. We should have been doing more.
Right.
We could have definitely been doing more. And we are the cause of our own worst enemy. We created this because of our fear, because of our isolation. We messed up, right? And it was really the first time that T'Challa even had to question his father, because he held him in so high esteem and so much respect, that learning that his father made this mistake, not the mistake of, of addressing and confronting his brother who had betrayed them, right? But to leave the child behind, and then to kind of like whitewash over the situation, sweeping it under the rug, hoping that it never came back.
Yep.
And so, and then it did. And usually when you keep sweeping stuff under the rug, it's so much more of a bigger mess than it would have been had you just swept it up and cleaned it at that moment. Like, now you got years of dust under there.
Yeah.
And you can't even recognize
and
it
it's gonna
anymore.
be tough. It might be caked up under that
It's
rug.
caked up. It's stuck to the boards. You got to get a darn spatula and a Brillo pad to wipe that thing off. And so now you have so much more trouble, because it's funny, because like the grace that Chadwick put into the role, and people were reviewing the movie and they were saying that you had characters that outshine Chadwick in the movie. I disagree, because he played the role that he was supposed to play. Like, this is a Marvel movie, right? So if you watch Captain America Civil War, Chadwick already had his anger moment, right? When his father died, he was trying to just kill the person who he thought killed his father, and he let revenge overtake him, and he wasn't thinking clearly. He had that moment in that film where he realized this isn't how I was raised, and this isn't how I should be carrying myself. So by the time he made it back to Wakanda, he was in the role and ready to become the king. And a king isn't just somebody who's overly aggressive all the time. It's a person who can assess all situations and make the right decisions, not just for himself, but to serve the overall society of whatever they are, in control of. So the way he portrayed T'Challa in Black Panther wasn't him being overshadowed by people. We talked about Ella Baker, right? and one of the most influential leaders is being able to see the potential in other people and let them shine in their roles. What Chadwick did was he played the role of the king, of the graceful one, and when it was time for him to battle, he battled. When it was
Right.
time for him to delegate, he delegated. So it was the perfect portrayal of the character and the role that he was playing in the film. So,
Right.
it's just surprising that so many people had so much to say. But,
It's always something. Somebody always gonna say
yeah,
something.
it's film criticism, but I just wanted to break that down. But
Mhm.
yeah, but even the messages of the layers of everything in the
The
movie,
representation of different cultures, different, within
even
that
within
one.
one
I
country,
mean, it was
showing that there are
amazing.
different ethnicities in the country, but also
Yeah.
showing that even those different ethnicities can come together for one cause and be, single-minded in the common goal, but still keep their own practices and not being collaboration in the matter of amalgamation where everybody has to be a oneness or a
Right.
monolith,
Right.
but still be unified. Unification doesn't
Mhm.
mean, a melting pot where everything
Mhm.
just becomes one big blob of the same
Exactly.
something. You
And
can
I feel like
still
that's
be
the
different.
idea that, yeah, that's the
That's why
idea
people
that we got.
resist unity. That's why people
Mhm.
resist it so hard, because they think it means oneness.
Right.
Unity means I accept who you are. I can learn from you and I can shore up what
Yep.
you are short on, and you can shore up what I'm short on, and we can bolster each other's strengths. That's
Mhm.
unity, right? And so it's just fitting to one puzzle, but each puzzle piece isn't the same.
Right.
If each
And
puzzle
it's
piece,
okay. It should be. It should be like that,
right?
right? We forget to I mean, I think, just thinking about us growing up in America,
Mm-hmm.
and that whole idea, like when I hear the melting pot, like I always challenge that
I
idea
hate
because it's
melting pot.
like, yeah, and I always challenge the idea that it's even a melting pot, because what it seems to me is like everybody comes there, right? Because we still segregated, even,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? And what, like, unjustly though, like people are, they're forced to be segregated and going without, certain resources and certain things. But we forget to, like, even when people who come to America, people thinking of going and getting the American dream, they're thinking that they have to drop everything unique about them, everything
Yep.
special about them to assimilate.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing has happened to us when they, trying to separate from our blackness, or from our, we don't want to be too this, too ethnic, right? When we're trying to blend in American culture. But we have to realize, like, who makes up American culture? That's all of us. That's the beauty of all of us mixing in, and contributing something to the pot. Which, again, I hate to say it's a melting pot, like it's a stew. Maybe it's like, you know what I mean. We got
It's
our
a
different
gumbo.
little, yeah, it's a gumbo, right?
The thing
And so
is, there was
we
this
just can't melt away everything about us.
there's a tossed salad theory and a melting pot theory, right? Because
Mm,
on the tossed salad, all the ingredients still have their original flavor. You still can
yeah,
identify the difference between a carrot, the tomato, the onion, the lettuce, the
right.
spinach, whatever. You can taste
Yeah.
all of them, but they come together to make one dish. Whereas a
Hmm.
melting pot of soup just becomes blech, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, but you talked about blackness and not shading away from your blackness. Black Panther, a Disney produced Marvel movie, is one of the best representations. They did not shy away from blackness. They talked about
Yeah.
Africa. They talked about the African American diaspora experience and the longing for something. They covered everything. It was what,
Yeah.
maybe two white people in the movie. Stan Lee made his cameo, and then the other guy from the other Avengers movies, and then some Asian people. But it was about us. We were at the forefront.
I
We were
love
in
it.
the background. We were the extras. We were walking across the
Hmm.
screen with no lines. We were in front of the
Right.
screen with all the lines. We were everything. And
Yeah.
that right there. And so we talked about this earlier, where we take advantage of those opportunities. So if we get into the room with these big studios and we actually say, all right, you're going to put money behind this. We're going to show you that you're going to not only, because the projections of Black Panther's first week were like, I watch a lot of movie shows and a lot of movie predictions. They were saying 90, they were saying like 90 million. They were saying 87 million,
Mm-hmm.
200 million.
Crazy.
200
Crazy.
million. That's Avenger movie money. That's when all the white heroes come together money.
Mm-hmm.
200 million for a solo act.
Right.
And the first time ever depicted. This ain't
Right.
the 15th Batman movie to ever come out. This ain't the 1900 Spider-Man movie to come out.
Right.
This is a
the
primarily
87th
unknown
Hulk movie.
Right. This is a primarily unknown comic book character. Like,
yeah.
poll the people who went to go see it and ask them that they know that Black Panther was a comic book. They probably didn't, right? Of the people that went to go see it. And then we did our job. You had celebrities buying out movie theaters, making sure that people go see it. Those things are important, but they're also important when we talk about the other movies that Chadwick made. We need things like that type of support for the 42s and for the Get On Ups and for those types of movies, so that we can show no matter what type of film it is, we want representation and we will support it. But it was just lovely to see that Ryan Coogler made sure that he didn't back down in the representation and the vibe.
Yeah, I was going to mention him too.
They weren't afraid. Yeah, go ahead.
I was definitely going to mention him too, and just seeing, I can just tell, just by I watch interviews with him, speaking on it. And I mean, he seemed a little more reserved, but I knew that he had that passion behind it, and just seeing what he does in the community and what he believes in, and how he thinks to represent our Blackness, the way that he does, just unapologetically. And I just knew it was just going to be such a dope movie, and it didn't disappoint. Like I said before, I watched that movie in theater probably about 5 times at least. I went to go see it. Like, did you go see Black Panther yet? Okay, I'll go with you. Let's go. I went to go see it, and probably, like, I was traveling around the time, so I was living in Egypt. I watched it probably 2 or 3 times in Egypt. Then I traveled somewhere, went to go watch it in that country. I moved somewhere else, went to go watch it in that. I mean, I couldn't get enough. Like, I was catching, because when you watch a movie over and over, you catch different things. And I was just so excited. And it was just so beautiful just seeing, like you said, he took more of a, more of like a backseat role. Well, just let other characters and other storylines really get the shine. And I love that. And I felt that was also Ryan Coogler's idea too, you know what I mean, to get the whole scope, because they knew, Black Panther was already getting the shine from the, the other movies and stuff. So I mean, it was just beautiful all over. And I know that just everything that's going to come after that, because I know that they were saying just, I saw a conversation with people talking about like the outcome and, the numbers that the movies did, and showing them like, see, people do want to see that, because a lot of times they try to make the excuse that people won't want to see it, or, it just won't hit that
Black
hard.
Panther was supposed to be, because Black Panther was supposed to be made before Blade. Wesley Snipes actually thought he was going to play Black Panther in the 90s.
Wow.
He ended up playing Blade, which is another Black Marvel superhero. I think Blade, the first Blade came around 97. So the talks about Black Panther go back that far, but they were afraid that, it wouldn't be supported or nobody wanted to see it. And it's so ridiculous, the thought. But it also goes to us not being in the room and us not being able to, show, hey, they will come. Like, we will show up for this. It doesn't matter. Like, it is just, that's interesting because Blade, even though it's a black led film, I don't recall any other black people in the movie. So
Yeah.
it's just a black person playing the role. It's not
The black
embracing the
story.
blackness.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And so, that's important as well when we talk about representation.
Right.
Yeah, but I love Black Panther. It's my favorite of the Marvel movies. It's my favorite
Oh yeah.
superhero movie. And there are
Yeah.
people that complain, like the story itself and all the things that it covered, and it made sense the whole time. Like, to me, it just flowed in a way that a lot of movies lack, especially a superhero's first solo film. Usually they take a lot of time to like build up the character, and it's just a bunch of dullness at the beginning. But
Hmm.
every moment, even the quiet moments, had substance to it. That it
Right.
had so much meaning in it. And I like the quiet moments better than I even like the action in the movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
get back to the talking. Like,
Yeah. Right.
get back to the dialogue.
Right.
Yeah, man. So I love Black Panther. But staying on that realm, we're gonna cover the
Mhm.
Wakandanization of again, like that term, and just challenging it, right? So I love the Wakandanization of Africa that I see happening because it
Right.
Black Panther, I saw people lining up in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Kenya to go see this movie, in South Africa to go see this
Mhm.
movie, people in Guinea going to, the available movie theaters to go see this movie, and everybody wanting to see Africa represented in a positive light, right?
Right.
And so to hear like a backlash of, saying that this Wakandanization of Africa is not an accurate representation. We need all types of images. We need everything. It's important to see luxury. It's important to see good and
Mhm.
have access to know what's possible so that we can build on that, so that more people want to come, so that we in the diaspora want to come back and invest and
Right.
and help move things alongside the people who are there already on the continent, to be collaborators, to know that, oh,
Right.
there are scientists and educated people and universities there that we can be supporting.
Right.
These things, like I said, exposure is so important. When you don't know, you don't even think.
When you
And
don't see it, we're not going out and because most of us, it is like a privilege for those of us who can travel the world and go see things
mhm,
firsthand. But like I always say, like, because it just took my interest. It just took me just thinking about the possibility, being exposed to other people who were doing it already. Like, how do I get there? How do I get to do it? And that was one of the most valuable things, is just stepping out on my own, because a lot of us will rely on secondhand, third hand information, what
right,
somebody else saying, is going
exactly.
on there. We can go and see for ourselves, and we can let, and that's what important about controlling the images. And I try to make sure, especially like when I'm traveling and stuff, the pictures that I'll show people, I'm showing them everything real, but also showing them a lot of the good stuff. We always see like the trash and the poverty and what's lacking. You can also see a lot of what is there. And I think a part of this, like this idea of like Wakandanization, where people were down in it, I'm like, why wouldn't you want us to kind of, I felt like in a way it's a way for us to like reimagine it and to see a future in it. Like it's sort of like
Hmm.
Afrofuturism.
Right.
Like when you look at Black Panther and stuff like that, and different representations,
Hmm.
what we see in our new like modern events like Afro punk and things like that, right? Because we are celebrating Africa and African culture, African people,
Hmm.
all over representing the whole continent, right? And those of us abroad, those of us outside of the continent, it's like a way for us to connect. And I think that it's definitely important for us to do that. Like we need to see a future in it and not just believe. It's us like rebelling against those old ideas of what Africa is. And and I think, I mean, shoot, We're taking control of those images, of those messages, what Beyonce's doing, what she did with Black is King and all of this stuff. Like, we need more of it. It's nothing, people can say what they want about it. We need more of it. We need to see it more. We need people to go out
getting a
there
seat at the
and see for
table and
themselves. Right.
demanding these large corporations, a Disney, a
Yes.
Universal, a Sony, to
Mm-hmm.
say, we're going to do this. We're not going to water it down. We're going to represent it in the way that it needs to be represented. You either, going to take it the way we're doing it, or we're, walking away, and not being afraid to walk away from the table, understanding our power, understanding that we're standing on the shoulders of the Hattie McDaniels, of the
Right.
Melvin Van Peebles, of the, Harry Belafontes, the Sidney Poitiers. They put in the work without the power, so that we can now have our grasp of it, and collaborating with the Tyler Perrys and supporting them, supporting the Lena Waifs, supporting the Ryan Cooglers, the Ava DuVernays, the Issa Raes, and understanding the importance of that, of showing what our support can do, who we can build, and not building people up to tear them down.
Right.
Building people up to collaborate, and then have them be a source to build other people.
Because it's us.
That's where
We
we need to
went
go.
through all of this together. That's the thing about us moving as a unit. We always need to keep that in mind. I love seeing when we show our control our images and represent us being unified, because that's what we need. Ultimately, that's what we need to get to where we need to go, to get out of this situation that we're in. Like, we went through all of this stuff together, right? We all been down in the trenches together. It's going to take us moving together as a unit. A lot of us, especially when we have opportunities, born into different privileges, and just come into different opportunities through our own hard work or chance, whatever, however we get whatever we got. And a lot of us get comfortable in it. We don't see our responsibility to our whole community. And I think if we thought like that, like if more of us thought like that when we start businesses, think about how important representation is for other Black people. As a business owner, whether you're advertising to Black people, or whether you're, just showing other Black people that this is possible to break into this industry, because like you said, we were talking about before, a lot of people didn't see it as being possible. We see it like, oh, this is that white man's world. We just have to find our place in it. No, we have to get it. Like, when it comes to our liberation, that's something that we have to go after. It's not something to be handed to us. We don't wait for it. We really have to be active and go out and grab it. We have to do it for ourselves. And so this taking control, ownership, demanding roles, demanding, if you're in a corporation that's not Black owned or Black, majority Black run, we have to know how to demand more and request more. Like, whatever you can do within the space that you have, we just have to think of with a village mindset, right? And move us forward. We all have to go with that same type of mentality, or at least a majority of us will go with that mentality, and we can influence the rest, right? That critical mass. Enough of us are setting that trend of thinking about us as a community and moving for us as a community, then other people will catch on. They'll follow along. We just have to blaze that path.
Exactly. And we have to make sure that when we see things happening, we actually acknowledge it and we support it, and we're positive.
Right.
Like, even if it's something that you didn't think of, even if it's something that you didn't see as a possibility, support it. Be behind it. Tell the people that, hey, I see this. I see the value in what it is that you're doing, and just let people know that, of substance. So as always, we end the show with letting you know, we're actually actualizing African unity. We believe that it is something of substance, that it can be done tangibly. There are ways to get involved. And we just implore you to visit africanunity.us, our website. and also follow us at African Unity on all social media outlets. And that is, we are on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. We don't have a TikTok yet. We gotta find somebody who's like 15 to run that for me. But like,
be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe to the pages. You know, like, let's just really continue this conversation. And you know, again, you can comment and join the conversation with us, ask questions, things, topics that you want us to discuss, and you know, chime in on, get your thoughts and everything. Because it's a conversation.
It's all about modeling dialogue so that we can learn how to do this not only on this platform but in our lives, so that we can make more progress. Michelee, let them know where they can find you and how they can support you.
You can find me on Michelee the Maker on my Twitter, Instagram, and on my business page, Mishmash World, and my business website, mishmashworld.com. That's where you can find me. But yeah, I want y'all to really subscribe and like and share these conversations and get into it. Let's help us grow so we can, you know, continue this conversation. And yeah,
because we want this to be like a full radio morning show, whatever time of the day show, and you know, eventually have the opportunity to invite some of these guests. So I want eventually our highlight reel to be a guest on the show.
Yes.
Those who are still alive,
man.
and you know, talk with us through all the different topics of the day, and just get their input and their influence. And you know, the larger our numbers grow, the more support we have from you guys, the more possible that will be. So we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys same time tomorrow.
Peace.
Peace.